Fellas, yesterday's changes, let's talk about it. Because many of us were upset. Now, I know in the TWAB, I didn't come off as upset as you probably wanted me to, but that's because in the back of my mind, I'm still hanging on to a dream. And that dream is my weapon crafting prediction dream, where we essentially will be allowed to select every single perk unlocked on a certain weapon. Now, here's the thing. What does this have to do with orbs or masterworking your weapon? Stated in the most recent TWAB, Bungie is changing the way Guardians create orbs of power with their weapons. Elements of the new weapon crafting system will encourage you to use many different weapons and ask you to burn hard-earned masterwork materials on weapons that you may only be using for a few hours, just to generate orbs. That seemed like a tall order. This, combined with our desire to act on consistent feedback that players want to be able to generate orbs of power with exotic weapons that do not yet have a catalyst, led us to the implementation we'll be using in the Witch Queen and beyond. Orb generation on weapon multi-kills will no longer be a function of a weapon's masterwork status, but will instead be provided by a suite of armor mods, which are unlocked automatically for all players and which plug into a helmet armor mod socket. Each such mod will apply the orb generation effect to all weapons you have equipped of a particular damage type. So a single mod will cover multiple weapons in your arsenal if they share a damage type. Now, this can be taken as both a buff and a nerf. It's taken as a buff considering we do have a lot of weapons, and they even give us example Cloud Strike, Thorn, Thunderlord, Teraba that don't have exotic catalyst, and at least given the fact that they're giving us this example, I don't think we're going to get an exotic catalyst for those exotics anytime soon. Now, would I prefer for every exotic to have an exotic catalyst? Yeah, absolutely. But this is a buff in the meantime for those exotics. Where it is a nerf, and a big nerf, is the fact that this mod is going to be slotted on our helmet, which already is saturated with a ton of other mods. Hands-on, Ashes to Assets, Dynamo, Ammo Finder mods, targeting mods. I would say the helmet is really saturated. Even if they are low-cost mods, you just run out of mod sockets, which is why I suggested yesterday, guys, to really farm up the Master Dungeon armor and those Artifice sets to allow you to get another mod socket, although that's just going to be for your artifact mods. And then the other thing is, like, what's the cost of this orb generating mod? Listen, guys, I understand if you read this yesterday or listened to us yesterday, why you would be upset. But today we're going to dive into why I think this is happening and what I'm hoping for. First up, Chris Proctor, who's one of the lead devs over at Bungie, weapons specialist, etc., actually talked about it on a podcast last year, in which he stated that weapons had reached their memory limits, which keeps Bungie from making more interesting attributes and perks. Now, orb generation in particular was bogging down weapon memory, keeping Bungie from making any sizable changes. We saw this, guys, with our adept weapons. You remember back in Destiny 1, adept weapons inside of Trials had intrinsic perks. Take Burning Eye, for instance. This was a scout rifle back inside of Destiny 1, and it had your normal perks, but it had snapshot on the adept version, essentially allowing you to have 3 different traits at once. Now, we bring this up because inside of Destiny 2, we don't have intrinsic traits. We've got archetypal traits, such as lightweight, adaptive, etc., but we don't actually have intrinsic traits. And we thought that we were going to get that with Celerity and Bottomless Grief for our adept weapons for both Grandmaster Nightfalls and Trials of Osiris, but we didn't. Bottomless Grief was just added as a trait option versus an intrinsic trait. And the same thing applies to our adept Trials weapons. Instead of having Celerity, which is a fantastic perk when you're the last member of your fire team, as an intrinsic trait, it is instead just added as a trait option. And for most people, they don't even choose these traits unless everything else is garbage. Considering what was shared from Chris, also retweeted from Joe Blackburn, and Kujay was the one who pointed out all this to us, as he's been connecting the dots over and over, but essentially freeing up this memory, however sizable it may be. And I guess producing orbs must have been something that really hindered weapons. But freeing up this memory is leading us to somewhat speculate of a weapons 3.0. We're already getting Void 3.0, subclasses 3.0, and we know that this is the year of tuning. This is the year that Destiny 2 is essentially going to become Destiny 3. The foundation was actually in Beyond Light, and now we're going to start seeing the structure being formed, or so we hope. Now, to add even more to this theory, considering the new weapons in Witch Queen will be the only ones that will be available to weapon craft on launch via the Witch Queen Vidoc, by the way, Bungie is most likely reworking weapons from the ground up to allow for better customization. Now, everything is on the table, guys. Bungie has not said much of anything in regard to the new weapon system that they're implementing. The only things they have actually said are that weapons are at their memory limit right now, solely due to Masterworks generating orbs. So they are removing this aspect of Masterworking for Witch Queen. And that's actually pulled from the paste spin, which, by the way, has been right about about a lot of things. I don't really like to dive in there too much, but for this one we did, because this is a big change. Now the question is, to what extent is this change going to be? Are we just going to get intrinsic perks like we had back in Destiny 1, essentially allowing for a weapon to hold 3 different traits at once? Can you imagine if some of your adept weapons could have perpetual motion as an intrinsic trait? Raid weapons would become more valuable, having unique traits besides just the perk pools, and there will be a clear separation of in-game loot from other legendary weapons. And I know we have somewhat of a separation now with time loss, adept weapons, etc., but this would be an overcommitment to the more hardcore player, accessible potentially through weapon crafting. Now, a huge weapon 3.0 change would actually be for weapon frames to change themselves. Now, I don't think this is going to happen because it just sounds way too crazy. Now, let me just bring this up. First up, weapon frames includes things like lightweight frame, precision slug frame, high impact frame, aggressive frame. These are tied a lot to the identity of the weapon, right? The change one's frame is essentially changing the archetype of the weapon, but there are intrinsic abilities that makes these frames so good. Take aggressives, for instance. They essentially are high caliber rounds. Lightweight frames are literally my favorite shotguns, even if I don't even have a great rolled Reese Walker. I will continue using it just for the increase in movement speed and handling. Will weapon crafting allow us to change actual frames of a weapon? That's kind of a stretch. What I'm really hoping for, guys, out of everything, is for us to just get the options that you see right there on this thumbnail. The ability to earn traits of a weapon from the given activity that you play in. And considering that you are no longer going to be generating orbs from your weapons, whatever that memory capacity is that's now being freed up, I'm hoping that's going to be enough here to really go for the scope we're shooting for. Because we already have weapons with 2 traits, right? Take time loss weapons, for instance. We already have weapons that have 2 traits in both of those columns. So just adding that to all of our weapons, that's not that big of a deal. It's nice, but is that really a weapons 3.0? But having the option to earn every single one of the earnable traits within the game, and then arrive where you only have to keep one of a specific weapon. And all you have to do is change out the trait combinations depending on the activity that you're going in. But something that has been retweeted multiple times from DMG, Kevin Giannis, and other people at Bungie was this post right here that was months ago about the near future for Destiny, in which they stated that annual expansions are good times for system level changes. They go on to give an example about what if you had 2 void adaptive hand cannons, one from the Suros Foundry and one from the latest raid. Why do you care about one more than the other? The stats tend to be very close. Perk pools can be different, but there are only so many perks, and it's a stretch to say the perk pool gives the weapon its identity. We've got something shipping on all new and reissued weapons in the Witch Queen that addresses this issue directly, and are working to expand the same solution to all weapons that drop in the future. Look, I know that the Orb Generation being removed from weapons looks terrible, but I'm really banking on Bungie nailing whatever this is that are coming to our weapons. As Kujay says, this frees up the perk budget on our weapons. And DMG even retweeted this, stating to stay tuned for future weapons-focused TWABs. Lots of fun news to cover over the next few weeks. It's obvious that Bungie's not tipping their hand on this. They're obviously keeping this one close to the chest, and will probably reveal this in a TWAB. Hell, maybe even a Vidoc. Regardless though, before we just jump out there and say this is the worst thing ever, I just want to see what's going to happen to our weapons. Because to be honest with you guys, weapons really haven't changed all that much. The last big change to me was going into Forsaken, right? That was weapons 2.0. We need a weapons 3.0. Whether it's what I want here with the ability to select whatever perks you want on a single weapon, similar like Bungie bringing up artifact mods where over a season you can unlock every single artifact mod. Imagine a weapon after obtaining it, you can unlock every single trait via weapon crafting or whatever other means, or in the least getting intrinsic perks back in the game, thus allowing us to essentially have 3 traits on a single weapon. So guys, let me know in the comments below what you think here. If you're upset, dude, be upset. Wait with me. And if weapons 3.0 and the reveal of it, whether it's in a TWAB or a Vidoc or whatever, and it comes out looking like poop, I will be the first one standing with you, beating my chest, demanding for answers. But I gotta wait until then, guys. I gotta wait. By the way, if you missed our video doing a deep dive analysis of everything Witch Queen related, feel free to check that one out, guys. We went over a lot of stuff: alchemy, destinations, abilities, even gameplay of the new exotic. And if you're a new person here, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Stick around as we cover everything Destiny here. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.